my friends, and welcome to episode 34 of the Kiss Army Nation podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Pasquale Veri.
And I am Claudio Spera. Welcome to the show, everyone.
Based in central New Jersey, in touring throughout America and beyond, Alive 75 is a one-of-a-kind Kiss tribute that brings the classic Kiss experience of the 70s to life, delivering all of the elements of the decade, the sights, the sounds, the energy of the period on an impressive replica stage. These opening remarks from Alive75.com could not be more true. And here on the Kiss Army Nation podcast is a fire-breathing, blood-spitting demon himself, Anthony DeLucia Jr., to talk about his adventures in this unique band and his own end-of-the-road story. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate the time to spend with you here.
Okay, Anthony, listen, I've known you for several years now, and I'm not quite sure. Is it DeLucia or DeLucia?
Depends on if you ask me or my wife. So if you ask my wife, she would say it's DeLucia. That's the appropriate. It's the Italian way to say it.
Yes, of course.
Some years ago, I actually found myself working with someone with the exact same last name, and he pronounced it DeLucia.
DeLucia.
And I said to myself, we could say it that way. And that became a very easy, I'll admit, easy professional way to use the name because people always butchered the name. They just never could say it right. DeLucia seemed to be easier to roll off the tongue. So my wife will never miss an opportunity to correct my name. So that's why I started with, it depends on who you ask.
Love it.
I've been calling you DeLucia for years now. So
Yeah.
I tried something different tonight, but it doesn't roll off the tongue as easily.
Yeah.
How come, Pasca, with your roots, from Italy? How come you're not doing the Lucia, man?
DeLucia. Oh,
that's it. He's got it.
That's right, man.
I've heard DeLucia since the beginning, and
Okay.
I just got used to that.
Yep.
So my goodness, Anthony, we haven't talked in over 2 years, and so glad to have you on the show. It'll be a great opportunity to reminisce about the past. Look to the present, and then look forward to the future. So Claudio is going to get us started on this.
Yeah, so, Anthony, well, again, thanks for being part of the show. It's a real pleasure to have you on. And, I had the pleasure of seeing the band at one of past Kiss Army Nation events, and we'll talk about more later on. But I heard that the Doors played actually a major part in the inception of the band. So can you take us back to the beginning, 2013, I think it was?
Yep. Sure. Yeah. So not necessarily the Doors, but the Doors music and a Doors tribute band. I've told the story a couple of times, but it's like yesterday. My wife is a Doors fan. Got us some tickets to see a show at the local college, the community college. I went, I enjoyed the music, and about 3-4 songs into the show, I found myself admiring the music and especially the lead singer, who really had a Jim Morrison look and a vibe and delivery to him. But then I started getting a little bit particular with everything else I was seeing and hearing. And then going so far as to say, well, the Doors, they came on board, 60s, late 60s, the flower power, where's the hippie culture? How come I don't see Paisley stuff in the background? Where, and I started critiquing what they could be, but weren't. And I'm doing this in my head, and I'm kind of nudging my wife a little bit because I'm getting a little bored at this point. I'm like, I could listen to this music at home. There could be more going on here.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And then I started looking at the room that I'm looking at the show in, which was a brand new technical theater at the community college. And I'm thinking, there's about 350, 400 seats here. There's a nice size stage. They got good equipment, nice lighting. I could do a show here. And that just keeps going. So the next morning, Sunday morning, I'm having my coffee in my kitchen. And I just come up with this crazy idea to do a Kiss tribute act and bring it to that school and do it on that stage. That afternoon, I'm calling people, and they're all calling me crazy. But I'm basically saying, hey, you want in? Do you want in? Do you want in? And I think Monday, Tuesday, I was with the college to kind of sell them on this idea before we really even had anything built. And they liked the idea. We talked about doing it in almost two pieces, right? So there was a pre-show to really satisfy what I had been thinking about in terms of the environment, the time frame, what was going on in people's world at that time, right? The lives of the people, what's in the news, what's in the fashion, et cetera, et cetera. And then, you know, how KISS came to be as big as they were at that time, and try to contrast that and kind of capture that. So the theater director loved the idea. It's like, oh, this is really good. We can do this. And they had a fantastic facility to support what we were talking about building. And then, you know, we started kind of working on how we can make that happen. And we had a year and a half to kind of put the band together, to rehearse, to learn what we needed to learn, and to kind of put all the pieces in place.
So that was the first time for you to be in a tribute band?
The first time in the tribute band was really when I was in high school.
Okay.
I did a band. We called ourselves Kissamania. We, you know, after the whole Beatlemania craze, was probably in the late 70s to 1980, maybe 79, 78. I was in high school. 3 other band members were in high school. And I think we played maybe 4 or 5 shows at local schools and at 1 or 2 clubs in our area in Brooklyn at the time.
Okay.
So this was a revival, if you will, because 2 of the people in the first iteration of Alive 75 I played with when I was in high school. One was my cousin and one was a buddy from high school at the time.
Wow. So cool. You know, since that day, you know, you go and see the show, and then you start making calls, and the next day you're meeting with the people in the community and trying to set it up. So you had a vision, right? So you knew it was going to happen.
It was interesting to me. It was exciting. It gave us something to do, to be quite honest. But I also, I'm a different kind of KISS fan. And I mean that by, I absolutely love the music. It was a huge part of my life. And I think every KISS fan has that part of it. But I was not big into a lot of the collectibles. Like, I'm admiring what you have behind you there. I have a couple things. I didn't even know what a KISS convention was.
Okay.
So I was on a different level in a different place, but really saw this as almost a Broadway kind of show opportunity to recreate a time, place, and use KISS as the focal point.
Got it.
I was a semi-professional musician and still am. And so it was just a matter of kind of putting the theatrical piece to the musical piece. And kind of putting it out there. And I grew to appreciate more and to learn more throughout the entire, 7, 8 years that we've kind of been doing this then. But in the beginning, it was just a crazy idea.
Okay, nice.
So basically, this vision led to a deal with the Sussex Community College, and then the creation of that stage. Can you tell us what went into that?
Yeah, so it's kind of two halves to that. So the like I said, the theater director loved the idea. Basically gave us their kind of core focus for the 2014/2015 program season. We were headlined in their brochures and their communications as it led to that season. So now we had we had a little bit of pressure now to kind of put it together and do it the right way. For that first show, we found a staging company that had the right riser in terms of the size and how high it went and things like that. We had to actually commission and build the logo, the sign. So we invested in that just for that first show. And we rented the backline. We worked with a company out of New York that was very supportive. They showed up the morning of and unloaded a huge truck with, 3 or 4 Marshall stacks and the SVTs that you saw, and kind of put everything in place for us. And so again, back to the way it was, in the 70s. Now, it was supposed to be a one-time show. So when we decided to keep doing it, it was hectic for a few months between the end of November and March, when we had our second show, to then purchase and assemble what we needed to be able to go on the road and kind of do this time after time after time.
Mm-hmm.
So, there was a lot of personnel changes throughout the years, and we'll talk about that later. Can you tell us right now about the pioneers, the original members of Alive 75?
So myself as the Demon, my cousin Mike was the Star Child, Paul Stanley character. He and I were part of that Kissamania band back when we were in high school. He was the first guy I called for the opportunity, and he was a little bit kind of undecided. And I remember saying to him, I said, Michael, I said, just to be clear, I'm going to make this happen, and you're going to either be on stage with me or you're going to be in the front row wishing you were on stage with me. You know, we got to laugh about that. I didn't want to do any arm twisting, but I wanted to make sure he understood there's an opportunity here, and do you want in or not? He eventually said, no, you're right. Yeah, let's get in this. And there's a history to how that came to be. And I had been playing with him in a rock and roll party band. So this was just another project for us to work together on. The spaceman was Anthony Russo, who was a very, very good friend of mine in high school. We had reconnected after a disconnect for many years. I'm sure like many people do as they kind of grow apart in different ways and then discover each other in Facebook or other ways, right? Started hanging out again together. And then he actually was one of the first people to mention, wow, you know, it'd be pretty cool if we could do that again, as we reconnected and started reminiscing about some of the stuff we did in high school. And so that was a little seed that was planted probably, you know, months before. I'm sitting in that auditorium watching the Doors tribute, and then, you know, it comes up and says, that's what he's talking about. We can do this, and here's how we can do it. And so that's where it came together. And then the fourth member from the original plan was Albert Rager, who was also the drummer in my rock and roll party band, huge Kiss fan. And we started working together in that, late 2013, early 2014, marching towards the first show. So Al ended up moving to Ohio suddenly, with just a couple of months to go. And Joe Gillies, who we had known through a friend of a band kind of relationship, answered the ad we put out for the drummer and started working with us late that summer. And within a couple of months, charted the whole album, learned a live back and forth, really kind of gave us what we needed to make it happen in November.
Wow.
Nice
story. I love it. So Anthony, Pask mentioned in a previous episode of this podcast that he first met you at a New Jersey Kiss Expo.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I guess you were there to promote the band. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, and let me see if I can connect some dots to get to Pask, because one of the fascinating things on this entire journey is how everything links together. Mm-hmm. And you don't see it when you're at the beginning looking out there. You're just thinking about how to get to that show and make it happen. But when we're at that show and we look backwards, it's very easy to see how everything fell into place, and the universe, as I like to say, kind of lined things up to make things happen. So I start looking around, and Mr. Speed is one of the top acts. I know that, right? So I shoot them a blind note. And Rich Kosak, I'm going to throw him all the credit, was very gracious, reached back out to me, hey, can I help you? And didn't know me from a hole in the wall. And I start peppering him with questions. I'm thinking about doing this, and this is my idea. And I'm all amped up and I'm all excited. And he's like, well, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. And gave me some things to think about. And one of the things he shared with me, one of the questions I had was, how do you get that smoking guitar? Where does that come from? What do you do? And he mentioned Bill Baker. And Bill Baker, many people in the circles know his name. I find that he lives only 2 towns away from me. So now from Rich, I'm in touch with Bill. And Bill's a great guy, and we meet, and we have lunch, and we're talking, and he's going to build the guitars for us, and this is fantastic. And at some point, I'm either dropping off or I'm picking up a guitar, and he tells me, well, you this Saturday, you're going to the expo, right? And I told you I didn't know anything about these conventions, right? What expo, Bill? What are you talking about? And he looks at me like I have 2 heads. The Kiss Expo. What do you mean? You don't know? And he tells me everything I need to know. This is like on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. The expo's that Saturday. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So we run around and we get some business cards and we print out some stuff. And I contact the guy who was running the expo. And do you mind? And oh, sure, go. If I can be of any help. It was Peter Arquette. I said, I can be very, hand your stuff out. Like, I didn't want to step on toes. I don't know how these things are run. I didn't want to just burst in there and talk about my new show, right?
Sure.
So that gets me into the expo. So I'm there, and I think one or two of the other guys from the band were there for a little bit, and I meet Pask. So that's how we connect the dots to Pask.
Okay.
And Pask is there with his girlfriend and his microphone, and he's running around talking to people. And we start talking a little bit, and he asks me about the show, and I tell him what we're doing. He says, "Oh yeah, when is that and where?" And I tell him it's going to be November. It's in Newton, New Jersey. And he goes, "Whoa, that's about 5 or 6 hours from me.
I remember that.
I can be there." And I looked at him like he had two heads. What? And I don't know this guy, right? He's just somebody I bumped into at the expo. "No, I come in all the time. Like I came in for this. I'm in Montreal, but I always come in and I could be there." Like, okay, be great. Sure, of course. And then he says, "Can I interview you?" And I'm like, "For what?" And it was the Kiss Army Nation stuff. And I don't remember exactly what you were doing at that point, but you put the camera on and you put the microphone in my hand and you asked me some questions and we banged that out. It was exciting. It was fun. I remember after that, shortly, you put together a very cool video, helped us to promote it. And Pask was one of the first people to kind of get on board,
supporting,
kind of really start to help share the information about Alive 75, which was great. That's where
that's awesome. That's great.
And I remember you, I remember when I actually showed up to the show, you couldn't believe that I actually went. You didn't think I would go.
No, because, people, there are those people who will tell you anything and, they may be honest too, but then they don't realize what did they just commit to or what is it really going to be? And so when you tell me you're going to drive 6 hours to see my show, I'm like, really? Okay, that'll be cool. And then when he did show up, it was, it's phenomenal. And he's been to a lot of them since
then. A lot of them. I'm actually wearing the T-shirt from 2014.
Yes. I appreciate you representing. I felt a little funny wearing my own T-shirt, but yeah, that's great.
So let's move ahead then to November 7th and 8th, 2014.
Okay.
The opening of Alive 75. Now I remember first coming into the venue and seeing that stage for the first time. It's like, oh my goodness, it's like being back in 1975. It was exactly from the pictures that I saw, of course, I wasn't there, just an incredible. And for me, overall, an incredible experience. Everything, your vision came to life. And as a viewer, as a spectator, it worked 100%. But from your perspective, tell us about that night. How did you feel that night?
Oh, it was huge. I mean, that was the culmination, and that was the delivery of what we have been working towards and planning. I'll be honest with you, the stage time is a blur. I look back at the video now, I cringe at some of it because I didn't realize what we were getting ourselves into, right? But I really put a lot of work, and the team did also, into the pre-show. Right. So, and what I mean by that is the one thing I loved about that theater was they had this phenomenal second tier lobby area that was a crescent shape outside of the auditorium itself. We set up video reels there to show you 1975 commercials and 1975 movie reels, coming attractions, things like Jaws, Dog Day Afternoon. We had a humongous poster art display that wallpapered the entire lobby area. And again, it depicted the art, the fashion, the politics, the sports, the celebrities of the time. And what we found were, generations of people who were there in 70s and saw stuff, and it reminded them. The Concorde, Gerald Ford, Billie Jean Williams, right? And then there was a generation of people who had no idea what they were looking at. And so you had these conversations that were going on. Oh, this was this, and that was that, and this was like that, and this happened then. And it sparked stuff. But we went beyond that. We had Time Warp by Bill St. James licensed to use in the auditorium, which is a throwback show for a period. So there's a DJ announcer that's talking about facts and fun little tidbits of 1975 in between the music of the time. So people are hearing that. We had the smell of marijuana in the theater, realistic enough to have at least one person complain to security that there were people smoking in the theater. We had the beach balls bouncing around. We had live actors depicting streaking through the auditorium, because that was big in 74, 75, 76. So we tried to really get everybody rooted in 1975. And on the second night, we also had a stand-up Polka Dot Ron do a like 20, 25-minute monologue around 1975. And he would remind you about what things were like. You know, who's going to pay for TV? Yeah, that's crazy, right? And because cable TV was hitting then. And I'll leave you with the biggest kind of contrast that always strikes me. The number one song on the radio in 1975, you know what it was? I don't remember the exact song, but the band, the group, was Captain and Tennille.
Right.
It could have been Muskrat Love or one of those kind of things, right? That's what was on the radio, number one. And then you have Kiss, right? So we set the table. We got you all back in that time. The curtain opens and bang, right? There's this loud, crazy show that's going on in front of you. And our goal was to bring alive the album to life. So we studied and rehearsed certain stage choreography, all of the raps. We played it as it was recorded or as it was displayed on the recording, right?
Us on the record,
how it was recorded, right? We did the songs in the order of the album and so forth, and tried to just give you the visual experience and that live kind of feeling of what the album was. And that included the blood, the smoke, a representation of the fire, because we couldn't blow fire in that auditorium, the confetti, the smashing guitar, and all of those elements that we didn't see other tribute bands doing on a regular basis. We saw a lot of guys dressing up and playing Kiss songs, and a lot of them doing a good job, but we didn't see a whole complete experiential thing.
Right.
And so it's kind of a very, very long answer to your question. Like, what do I remember of the night? I remember all of those pieces. And I remember being able to step back and say, wow, you know, we created that environment. And people can argue about how good the band was. That's a different discussion, right? But in terms of trying our best to create that environment for those, 2 hours for people to relive an experience, or for people to know
what it was like.
What it was like. Yeah, exactly. Right. I think we did that, and I felt really proud and really excited about having done that.
As you're talking, Anthony, it's amazing, because it's an approach that I've never experienced before. So most of the time, you go to see a Kiss tribute band, and that's it. That's a Kiss, but this travel back in time, where Kiss is a big part of it, but not all. That's a unique approach, and congrats, and hats off, for you, for the idea, for the band, because that must have been a huge endeavor for you guys, trying to put all that together. But it gives you the full experience. It's not just seeing a tribute band, right? So it's amazing.
Yeah. And I want to stress, this is not a knock on any of the other bands out there. I have enormous respect, and I can appreciate everything that goes into it, from simply putting on the makeup to putting on the makeup and the boots, and to kind of layer on everything else. It's all more than just being the Doors band. Again, not to knock anybody, right? But anybody can show up, plug the guitar, and play some music. There's a whole nother element of work that goes into it.
Of course.
And for me personally, it was a challenge, and it was an interest. I enjoy the production side of it. I enjoy the theater. I enjoy all of the other elements that go with it beyond just playing music. Right. So even in the rock and roll party band, and even in my life growing up as a musician, I always gravitated towards more of the show, making it more exciting for people, having other elements involved, things like that. So we really went all out on that. And then, 1975, very, very powerful, very, very rock and roll time for Kiss, right? Before we got a little bit more colorful, before we started getting into some more of the younger people coming to the crowd, before they evolved, right? And that was a hardcore time, and we liked delivering it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So this one-time concept show turned into so much more, right? So much so that people like J.R. Smalling, Lydia Chris and Len DeLucia became part of the Alive 72 family, because it became a true family.
Yeah.
So can you tell us in what capacity did they become part of the family? Let's say, for instance, with JR. So what happened with JR?
So if I may, I can connect just a couple more dots, right? Because they all come together. So at the expo, we bump into Len DeLucia, and he's selling his photos, and I introduced myself. I think it was actually Joe, our drummer, who actually met him first and said, "You got to talk to Anthony," And I come over and I'm like, "Look at these pictures. This is what we're trying to recreate." He had these great shots of them on stage, And I said to him, wouldn't it be cool if you could be there to shoot us like this? And he said, yeah, sure, I might be able to do that. And I went, whoa. I'm sorry. I'm kind of fantasizing right now. I don't feel, that we're in the same category or that I could afford you as a photographer, but it would be kind of, and he says, no, don't be silly. Let's talk. So long story short, he was there for our opening nights. He shot the first night for us, which was It was phenomenal, because that's where we started getting a taste of some history from people who were there, not reading stuff online, not reading books, but actually hearing it, right? So he was in the dressing room with us when we were getting ready, and he made that comment, which has been shared in different places, about, what, one of the big differences between you and the real Kiss, he goes, I've been in their dressing rooms. Their uniforms stunk. Because they would go from show to the trunk to the van to the next show. They would wear them, go back in the trunk, and repeat, right? So we had a very clean operation compared to what he had experienced, right? But Len, when we decided we were going to continue to do this, Len suggested I reach out to JR. And so Len was loosely friendly with him at the time, had a contact for him, could get in touch with him. And I think, I don't know exactly, but Len may have started like, hey, JR, would you be interested to hear from Anthony, or something like that? And ultimately, I just reached out to him. Okay. And he and I started talking. It was a little bit of texting or messaging. And then we were on the phone once or twice. And we met before the show. And we ultimately had him come on the first show we had at the Sherman, which was the first show we did after the concept shows. That was in March. And he was there to promote his book that he had just released not too long before then. Mm-hmm. So he was selling his book. He was talking. We talked about how he might want to be involved and how much or how little he wanted to do. And it was terrific. He was great to work with. He was friendly. He was gracious. The fans absolutely loved him. He was available and open to people. And from there, it just kind of built.
Wow. And how about Lydia?
So at a subsequent show, I'm pretty sure it was JR that got Lydia involved. So we're still connecting dots, and introduced her to the band. Again, she's got a book that she sells online. We offered her the opportunity to sell them at our shows. And we had the opportunity then to do, and forgive me, I'm not sure if this is the March show, was that they were all there, or it was the subsequent next time we came back in October. But we had a Sherman show where we had Len, JR, and Lydia at the show.
Okay.
That was probably October.
Right. So then we did a little Q&A. We gave a little bit of almost a convention experience where they took questions. They told some stories. And Lydia hung around for a couple of shows after that. She was at the Monco show. And we've got some stories of Lydia at the after party at that show. So we did that. But JR was with us through the end. Not necessarily at every show, but we were talking to him regularly. I was in close contact with him for quite a while. So I would say JR was probably the most involved. Spend time talking with my boys, both of which who work the stage, both in giving them tips and tricks and mentoring them, as well as being critical of certain things, like you shouldn't do that or you need to watch that, and kind of really helping them to be better stage hands and support for the show. Yeah, it was great having him. It kept us connected to what we were trying to recreate, and it gave us a great insight.
Yeah, for a guy who's been there for since the very first time, the early days, right? So yeah. Amazing.
I was going to say, and I'm not sure if you wanted to talk about this. I'm assuming we'll get to it, but when we did perform in Montreal, we took JR up there with us, right? So JR was a feature at that particular event, and he kept ribbing me and beating me up over the fact that Kissed, the other band that we played with, had beanies, and they gave him one. It was a Live 75 ain't got no beanies. He goes, "All right, see this? You see what I got here? I don't see a Live 75 handing out any beanies," right? He kept giving me crap about that.
He was such a character.
He was great.
So I mentioned earlier in the show that Alive 75 went through several personnel changes. So let's talk about how they contributed to the band. We'll start with Ron Albanese.
So Ron came on board. My cousin Mike decided the band really wasn't working for him. It was an amicable departure, and Ron had been hanging around the band and had been kind of helping out from time to time at shows. He did a couple of the monologue openings. We actually rehearsed with Ron once or twice, not necessarily auditioning, but we rehearsed with him when Mike wasn't available. And we started talking. And yeah, he was like, let's give this a try. And so he joined. He gave us, some showmanship up front and some real energy, which was a boost. His time with the band was somewhat short-lived. It was less than a year. I'm not sure exactly how many shows. But there were other issues that occurred, and we started looking for a replacement for Ron, and that's where we found Mark. Yeah. Now, Mark Fox was with us for the longest period of time, and Mark is a consummate professional. Mark may have one of the best Paul Stanley voices that I've ever heard. He took the job, I would say, reluctantly. He was working with a Chris tribute at the time on smaller stages and in smaller rooms, and was a little bit, I'll say, shy about getting onto a bigger stage and playing for bigger audiences. But to his credit, he took the challenge, and with every show, he got more energetic, he got more active, got more involved. And I loved playing with him. I used to tell him all the time, there's a dynamic duo right here. You and me, man, let's go out there. Let's do it with every show that we were doing. Really enjoyed playing with Mark. Mark ultimately relocated to Florida. And for us, it just wasn't feasible to keep working with a long distance member like that. And so we put out an ad and we looked for a replacement. And that brought us to Bobby.
Tell us about Bobby.
So think of this. We went from Mark Fox to Bobby Wolf.
Yeah.
How many people notice that? That's the universe talking right there. So Bobby came to us because he was made aware of the ad by our spaceman some years back, who put the bug in his ear because they were doing some kind of guitar sale transaction. And Bobby had always kind of then followed the band and paid attention to what was going on. And when Mark moved on and we put the ad back up, Bobby reached out and we started talking. Now, Bobby's kind of unique here in that he's not a professional musician, or hasn't been a professional musician. He's been a professional musical theater actor, sings, plays guitar, plays actually very well, but not in the context of a rock and roll band. He's been singing on stage in musical theater. So the adjustment to the Alive 75 stage has been, it's been different for him. But what we saw in Bobby and we absolutely loved was the character absorption, right? So now he's coming at this purely from an acting perspective, studying Paul and looking at how does he move? How does he stand? What does he do on stage? And I'll tell you, we've only played a handful of shows with Bobby, but what I see through the corner of my eye, and when I look at some of the videos that we've got, he's all over the place in 7-inch heels, and doesn't have 7, 8, 10 years of experience with them either, and doing a phenomenal job. So Bobby came in and just lifted the whole energy on stage to a different level, and I think gave us a whole new visual show. Now, Mark didn't have that when he joined, but he was developing it and had some of that at the time he departed. But Bobby came in with a whole new kind of set of feet that were dancing all over that stage, and it blew us away.
Wow.
And then Pat Purpura?
Yeah, so I mentioned the original Spaceman, high school buddy of mine, played for a number of years with us. Had some issues internally, again, amicable, and we both decided we need to part. And when I say we, the band and Anthony at the time. So we put out an ad. We actually held auditions for 6 or 7 guys that were all great players, but one of the things I kept saying to Joe, the Catman, because now he and I are the 2 original members, is that I'm not going to step backwards. We have to be able to replace this character with someone who's going to be as good or better. And if we can't do that, I'm not interested. We're not going backwards. And so Pat came in, and Pat had 10 or even 15 years, I'm not exactly sure, it could be closer to 15 years of experience playing with a band called Kiss Alive. I think it was called Kiss Alive. And they were in the Bronx and kind of lower New York State area. But they played all over, they traveled and toured and such. Very, very active. So he had a lot of hours under his belt. Phenomenal player, looks great, has the ace moves, and sings. And our guy didn't sing. So now suddenly we can do Shock Me, and we can do Rocket Ride, and we can, there's more harmony going on in some of the background vocals. And so again, I feel like Pat, more than anybody else joining the band, took the band to the next level.
Okay.
And absolutely loved the year that we played together. The next year was kind of pre-COVID and then coming out of COVID, right? But we had a solid year with Pat before any of that started. And every show was a phenomenal show for me to play with Pat and a guy at his caliber.
Nice. So now, Anthony, you're talking about the shows, and I guess we would love to talk about some of those memorable shows that, for instance, in my case, this is where I was introduced to Live 75 when you guys went international in 2017 at the Rocky New Year's Bash in Montreal.
Yeah.
What are your memories of that show and coming to Montreal?
Yeah, that's definitely in the top 5 or even maybe the top 3, right? Because it was a great opportunity to get the band to another country. We had talked to a lot of people online who would wish they had the opportunity to see the band. We've been working with Pask in one way or another for years at that point. And it was great to be able to come to his hometown and to be part of that party. We took it as an opportunity to do, again, something that I didn't see. I'm always thinking about how can we do something different? How can we do something that's bigger and exciting? What's the differentiator? I'm not a big fan of, and I don't know that I've ever said we're the best. I wouldn't say that. I'll tell you we're the ultimate, right? Because it's a little bit different. Yeah. But more important, I would talk about how we're different, right? There are a lot of Kiss tributes. And so what makes us different? We try to create an experience and do something that's unique. So for the Montreal show, Pascal and I talked, and we talked with the other band, Kiss, phenomenal band, about, let's try to do this a live tour, a live 2 tour, and give people an experience of both of those. We shared the stage, but the music, the characters, the costumes we were wearing, even down to the songs. We would not play the same songs. That would be silly, right? So we played in a live era set, and they played kind of a live 2 forward set. So people got, again, a different experience. I don't know that there's ever been, a double bill Kiss tribute at that level, right? I hadn't heard of it. So it was an exciting thing to do. And taking, the opportunity to bring JR up there and kind of add to the party and all that stuff.
It was fantastic. It was fantastic. Great event. And that same year, 2017, you guys did the New York Kiss Expo, right?
Yeah, so that was a little bit of a disaster.
Remember the light show?
That was a lesson to be learned. Absolutely. So, I'll give you the highlights. we have a promoter we're working with who's promising us the world, doesn't deliver. I'm not going to throw him under the bus because I don't know exactly what's going on. But what I do know is they did not hire a sound team for live band. They hired a DJ.
Okay.
Okay. They hired somebody who showed up thinking they're playing for a bar mitzvah or a wedding, not a rock band. And it became apparent too late when we thought we're going on stage. And then we realized the wiring is a mess. Who put this together? Oh my gosh, we didn't have time for the sound check because the whole schedule had been pushed back. It was a desperate situation. And then the nightmare was us standing around. I can only imagine what we looked like. But standing around on stage for 20 or 30 minutes while thankfully some very helpful fans and friends of the band figured it all out and got us to the point where we were able to deliver. And, much appreciation to the people who hung in there because, again, it was a late night. It was a long time. Ultimately, I think we did a good set and delivered when we had the opportunity to, but getting there was a nightmare. I never wish that on anyone.
It's still memorable, right? So,
absolutely. It's one of the, if you're asking me the memorable ones, that's on the list.
What about the show in the Dominican Republic at the destination event?
So that show, that was one that we put together with a very small, close-knit friends and family group. There may have been 20 or 25 of us. And then we, of course, made friends when we were there. So there was 30 or 35 of us around the pool and, walking around and doing things. We were there for entertainment without the band, but then had the opportunity to actually perform a song or two, which was great.
Okay.
But that was a teaser test for us to come back. And just pre-COVID, we were starting to line up an opportunity for the whole band to come in and actually do a full tour set and show there. That fell apart when COVID hit and everything kind of shut down.
Of course.
But we did something they call, rock shots opportunity where a couple of us dressed up, had a line of people down a red carpet taking pictures with us. We did what they call a boulevard walk, which kind of blew them away in terms of the interest that people had to take pictures with us. And the boulevard walk essentially was us riding in these spiders or Can-Am kind of cars through an area of about a mile long, just crowded with people, like just
greeting people,
inundated with people. And the guys that work there were like, it's never been like this. And they do it with every entertainer who comes to kind of promote. This is the guy who's going to be on stage tomorrow night. Come out and see him. Right. He says, it's never been like this. He goes, we'll stay out here as long as you want. This is great. And we're taking pictures and we're talking to people and we had a great time. And like I said, then we got to perform with the house band for a little bit and did some music. There were a couple other stories. It was a great time, but it really was meant to say, see what we can do.
Yeah.
You want us back? And it was like, absolutely we do. And we started making that plan and here we are.
That's a teaser. And then, Anthony, just to finish the question, you mentioned that on several occasions already, you rounded out several years at the Sherman Theater, right?
Yes. So I would say two things about the Sherman. One, the show that I'm most proud of is the one where I would say we turned the expo on its head. And what I mean by that is instead of a expo environment with a tribute act, we made it a tribute concert with an expo environment. Okay. So partnering with Peter Arquette and the Kiss Museum store, he put his mobile store in place. He had the lobby packed with merchandise. I think Matt Porter did a live Kiss Room broadcast from there. We had JR and some other celebrities there. And we really kind of set it up, kind of using the expo as the model, but making the focus of it the actual band performance as opposed to the other way around. That was a big deal. And we had a really good turnout for that and we had a really good time. Another time at the Sherman, we had Judas Priestess play with us. Yeah. And again, to put that one a little bit over the top, I talked to the lead singer and offered to get her a Harley Davidson motorcycle to bring her out on stage to kick off a show like Rob Halford. Awesome. Because people would lose their minds. It was like, there, that'd be great. And through a partnership with a local dealership, they showed up with a really hot looking, big motored bike. And I got a guy, because she didn't ride, but I got a guy to ride her out from off stage to center stage. And, the thing is revving and the light is there and people are losing their minds.
Cool.
She jumps off the bike, he boom, boom, and he rides off, and then they go right into their set. And it was a great way to kick off the night.
Nice.
So again, the Sherman allowed us to do really, really big things. And then we would end the year there, and we would always have our after party at the Hampton Inn in Stroudsburg up the road. And that was open to everyone. And that's where we made so many friends and had so many memories. And that's probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest show of the year that we would have each year.
Wow. Wow.
And again, it was all about the experiences that we created around the band. It was everything was always bigger than just the band and just playing the songs. It was what else can we bring to it? What else can we do with it? And that's what made it important, and that's what made it fun for us. And
different and very unique.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Very, very unique.
It's funny because you mentioned Matt Porter. Matt Porter is almost like an unintentional Easter egg on this show. Lost track how many times we mentioned his name throughout this podcast.
Yep.
And here we are doing it again. So really, it's just fitting to talk about Matt Porter again, because along with JR, Lydia, and Len, he also became part of the family, the Live 75 family. Tell us that.
Matt has been a huge supporter of the band. He's been a good friend of mine. I'm trying to see. We connected with Matt through an individual I met. I think his name was Chris, at the expo as well. Chris put me in touch with Ken, who does a podcast, the KISS podcast. And then after doing that podcast with Ken put me in touch with Matt. And I started working more readily and more regularly with Matt. We did a couple of podcasts with him. And one of them, we did actually, it was me, Len, JR. I might be forgetting one or two people. We had the whole band, and we were in the KISS room. We were there live, the headsets on, and did that. We did a show at Monco, in part thanks to Matt, because he was a huge proponent and champion for that show. And had a great time there for that. So Matt's been a real good guy, a real important guy to Live 75 support and history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Anthony, I know that you mentioned that before, and we can't avoid talking about COVID. 2020 when it hit us. So what happened to Alive 75 in 2020? You did have some shows in September, October, right?
Yeah. So the year pre-COVID, we had a lineup. So I gotta get my dates right. So 2019, I guess, right, is when it really all started to fall apart. February, March of 2019. So the year before that, we had a pretty good year. It was our first full year with Pat. Energized again. And the lineup, the tour that we had planned for 2019 was huge. And I was working with the Sherman on what our end of year show for 2019 was going to be. Mm-hmm. And the hope was we were going to get to Alive 2 territory. We were going to change up our costumes again. We were going to put together as best we could an Alive 2 replica stage. Mm-hmm. That's a popular look. A lot of bands are doing or have done that. Yeah. Again, I didn't want to do it on a small scale. So I was talking with Rich Berkowitz of the Sherman, how can we get that kind of staging in? What kind of support can we get? What could you maybe bring to the party? We were having all those conversations, and I was excited, right? I had that's the costume I wore in Punta Cana the year before, and trying to kind of get ready. We talked about the Spectre bass that's being built before we actually kind of went online here. I started that project years ago in preparation for this.
For this show.
COVID hit. We got one show in January, and then our year was really going to kick off March to the end of the year, and that just all went away. And so with that, you find other things to do. You find a lot of time to think. You find a lot of time to reflect. And when we came back from that and started playing again, and we've done a couple of smaller shows, and we did a live full stage show from the Strand as a fundraiser for the Strand. Since then, it's not been the same for me.
Okay.
We talked before about what that first show was and how big of a production it was, and we talked about some of the shows along the way. The whole experiential part of it has disappeared. It's become, we're playing Kiss songs.
Okay.
And for me, that's not what Alive 75 was meant to be. And so, so coming out of COVID now is where we find ourselves thinking about maybe this is not something we're going to continue to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that whole year plus really forced us to think about whether or not we're going to invest more, and we're going to do more, or has it run its course and we kind of did all the things we wanted to do. That really is what provided us the opportunity to kind of reflect on that.
Okay.
So is this what led to your decision in August that you wanted to leave the band?
Yeah. So when we came out of that, I looked ahead at where we were going and what else I saw us doing. And I'm not going to speak for anybody else in the band, but I will say the ultimate decision to sunset the band, we all agreed. I was the one who put it on the table. We all talked about it, but then the band made a decision that, Alive 75 is not what Alive 75 was. And in that context, we can close it down at the end of this year. But for me, I was out when August came. It just wasn't enough for what I wanted to do. I liked doing the bigger performance. I liked doing the bigger stages. I wanted to do different costumes and try different things, and really just to continue. If I back up a little bit, Pasc, I know you'll remember this, and I'm not sure how many of your listeners will, if they've been following closely or not, but the first 2 years was the Alive album, maybe the first year and a half, right? But then, you can't just keep doing that over and over and over and over again in the same market. You have to kind of evolve a little bit. So we took that to the Destroyer tour.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went from the initial kind of European tour where we introduced some Destroyer songs to the Destroyer tour and did that music. And then we did kind of the rock and roll over stuff, and we put the armor on, and we changed up the set a little bit, and we changed up our costumes. So I felt like we're evolving, we're moving, we're doing exciting and new things. We're taking people on a journey. We're continuing to provide an experience. And in this case, the experience is, what was it like when you became a Kiss fan and you had some of those early albums, and then the next album came out, and then you went to see them, and then the next album came out, you went to see them, and then things were different, right? And that led to what I mentioned earlier about trying to get us into Alive 2 territory, Love Gun territory, going back to the Sherman at the end of that year. When that didn't happen, I didn't see us having any more lineage or any more kind of evolving to happen. It started to get kind of haphazard and random. And that's when I personally decided I don't want to do this. It's just not for me. And so the initial reaction was, what? Okay, what do we do? And the team decided we're going to look for a new demon, and I supported that, and I helped them. I put the word out myself. I asked people I know that do what I do. I was present at a couple of auditions where we looked at, and I gave feedback on what I liked, what I didn't like, what I saw, what I think could work, and so there was some work going on to try to rebuild and kind of keep the band together and going. But in the end, like I said, the real thing that stuck out was Alive 75 was built for a purpose and to deliver an experience. And that's what's different. And it just doesn't feel like we're there anymore. So do we really want to continue to do what we're doing? Now, having said all of that, all four of us will very likely continue to do what we do in some form, but not as Alive 75 and not necessarily together.
Do you believe, Anthony, that that COVID basically and the context that we're living in had a lot to do with the decision, or it was just a matter of time? So you think that still Alive 75 was going to call it, no matter what?
I won't say that COVID is the reason, but COVID and the pandemic circumstances created the opportunity to think about it, to reflect.
Okay, to reflect. Okay.
Some people, and I'm sure I've talked about this to other people, and in fact, I know that I've talked about it because there's an article on Kiss Asylum about this prior to Pat joining. I, again, at that point, thought about leaving the band because I didn't feel we were doing enough, and I didn't feel it was as big as I wanted it to be.
Right.
And there are 4 people in the band, and each of us have a different sense of how much they want to do and how big they want it to be and what satisfies them, and that's normal, right? You've got bands don't last forever because people start to think and do and want different things. And so prior to Pat joining the group, I was thinking that this has probably run its course. And when Pat came on board, there was some new energy there. And I started, the mind starts going, and wow, okay, we can do this, we can do that, we can add songs, we can go here, we can now get to a live 2, Ace can sing. And that was, and then COVID hit and the pandemic hit and there's no work to do. And so then you just think, you spend a lot of time planning and evaluating. Does it make sense? Are there other avenues? Should we do something different? Should we stop? Do we reinvent? So again, I wouldn't say it's the cause, but I would say it presented the opportunity to at least step back and think about it.
To reflect. Yeah,
absolutely.
There's been a post in the Alive 75 Facebook page, that reads, after considerable deliberation, the band has decided to bring our ultimate classic Kiss experience to a close on the 4th of December at Debonair Music Hall. So what are fans going to experience at that show?
So Debonair is a small stage show, and the room there, the sound is always phenomenal. Okay. They have a great team. They've got a great system in that room. That's one thing. The people who run that room, Dave Gaskill, is a great guy, and he's a great supporter of the band. He works with us really well. So we like playing there. We can't do all of the big show there, but we have a great stage to play on. We've got great sound behind us, and there's a lot of energy in that room, and the show always comes off in a good, positive way. So from that point, it's going to be a good final show. It also is a smaller room, and it allows people to get very close, right? So again, there's more of a connection. If we close the show with the Sherman and you didn't come to the after party, you didn't get that close to the band.
Understand.
Right? Here, you're very close to the band. Yeah. We are going to play. So the opener is going to be Happy Hawthorne. Okay. They've played with us a couple of times. They're a great local band, some originals, some covers, but they do a really good job. And then we are going to play 2 sets of music. So we're going to do an extended show set, and we're going to do a little bit of some old and a little bit of some newer.
Oh, nice
stuff. Yeah,
good.
There will definitely be a handful of songs that people have not heard before. That stuff that we started to do coming out of COVID. So there'll be a couple new surprises for people.
Cool.
But I just think it'll be a good opportunity to get up close. We're going to put a call out for, if you saw us in the beginning, please come see us at the end, because we're in our home state of New Jersey. We're in northern New Jersey. The first show was on the western side of northern New Jersey. This one's on the eastern side, but it's reachable, and you will have, completed the journey with us, right? From those first early shows when we were green and learning a lot to where we are now. I think we'll put on one of our we'll have one of our best nights. We'll play some great music, and we'll have a good time.
Awesome. So how can people get tickets for the show?
The easiest is to get through our Facebook page or our website. There's a ticket link within the event on the Facebook page. There's also a ticket link on the website tour page. There are reserved seating tickets at Debonair. There's only about a dozen left. Beyond the reserved seating, once all the table seating is gone, then it's general admission. I'm not sure what the numbers are and the overall availability is. We usually sell that room out, but what we've been finding, especially with a couple of the shows we've done now with COVID, is people wait until we get close because they're still looking at what's going to happen. Are things happening? Are things changing? There's still some people, concerned about coming out in that environment. So I get all of that, but this is our last show. So if you know you want to be there, I would get my ticket in advance. I'd make sure I got my way in, and I would look forward to having some fun.
Cool.
So Anthony, before we wrap up, so after December 4th, your end of the road, what's the future look like for you?
So I have already been offered opportunities to play in other bands. I don't know that I want to play in another band. I would be more than willing to fill in from time to time, kind of satisfy what I need and what I want. I think I could bring something to some other bands out there. So I've not made any commitments. I hadn't made any plans when I decided in August I was done, other than to say, I'm sure I'll get on stage again at some point, but no definitive kind of this is when and this is where I'm going to be. So nothing to announce at this point, but just to say that I am expecting to continue to perform at some level for some time.
Nice.
And again, not speaking for anyone else, but the band as a whole has similar opportunity in terms of filling in terms of maybe joining other bands. So I think everybody's going to continue to do what they love. Everybody's going to continue to have an opportunity to do it at the level that they want, at the frequency they want. It's all good. It's all good.
Nice.
Good stuff. So Anthony, we're wrapping up as Bas was saying, and I can't thank you enough, for being in the show. It was a very unique experience. So thank you for everything that you've given us, the KISS fans, not only for the music and the show, but the uniqueness of what you guys created. And, wishing you the best of luck for everything that you're going to do in the future. And hopefully our paths will cross very soon. Thank you. For
sure.
that.
No, I appreciate it. It's been a great experience. It's been a great ride on our side. And thanks for having me and having the opportunity to chat. It's always great. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, Pask.
So Anthony, this was a very special episode for me because, a lot of the stories that you were telling, I was there.
Yes.
I was a part of that. I was one of the first people to interview you.
I was just going to say that. Yes.
In 2014.
Not one of, the first.
The first. That's incredible. That's
when you put that microphone in front of me, I'm like, what are you doing here with this mic and the TV? Who are you with? Are you with the network? What's going on? I have a show, and yeah, can I interview you? Me? You want to interview me? That was the first. Wow.
And now we've come full circle.
Yep.
Interviewing you for the Kiss Army Nation podcast. I feel like I was a part of that journey with you.
Absolutely.
And it was an absolute honor to share that experience with you and the band.
I appreciate it. Let me just, let's leave your folks with a little bit of a tickler. If you ever want to talk to me again about some of maybe the more mature audience stories that I know you were a part of, there are other things we could be talking about that might cause some to blush. You might have to have your little finger on the beeper. But yes, Pasquale was definitely there for a lot of what went on.
Oh my goodness.
And it's been a lot of fun. And honestly, that's what this is. Life is meant to be experienced. Absolutely. The memories that we carry, that's what it's all about. You're not here to sit and watch the grass grow. You're here to do what you can do and to get joy out of it and to share that and spread that. And I think we've done that. And yeah, you were right there with us for just about all of it.
Oh, no,
I appreciate your support.
Thank you. Because of you, I became really good friends with JR.
Yeah.
Rest in peace. And I'm not going to repeat the stories. It's a family-friendly show. But again, what an experience with JR, Len, with Lydia, with the whole family. Just amazing. So again, thank you so much for being on this show and sharing this journey with us and our listeners.
My pleasure. Great talking to you guys. You'll be well.
So, to the KISS Army, thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. And remember, never stop rocking. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Anthony.
The KISS Army Nation podcast has partnered up with Click T-Shop to offer our listeners a high-quality T-shirt with graphic design by Xander Graphics. Check out Click T-Shop at clickteeshop.com.